Hey there. This episode originally aired on my Patreon many months ago, so some of the information might be a little bit outdated by now. If you'd like to check out episodes as soon as they come out, you can join my $3 tier over there, or you can subscribe to check out full episodes coming here eventually. Either way, the choice is yours. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Pat's Creative Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest joining me. It is none other than Youngtown, also known as Luke Sizemore. Luke, would you care to introduce yourself to the people out there?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I make music and production. Long time ago, used to do videos on YouTube in the video game sphere. Don't do that no more. And that's basically it.
Now, you've also actually recently kind of returned to YouTube, though, because of your recent streaming problems, right? And would you care to elaborate a little bit on how that's been going on? Like, how have you been creatively dealing with switching to YouTube and whatnot?
Yeah, it was a big issue. We came back from Casey and I had just got married, and we were gonna do hey, we just got married type of stream. And so we the day of, I boot up Twitch, and I remember trying to check out something on Twitch on my phone earlier that day. So I go in, for some reason I'm logged out, and that's never happened to me before. But of course, I'm just thinking it's technology, something's messed up. And so I didn't really bother trying to log in because I didn't remember my password or anything. So I'll do that later. So when I came to setting up the stream, I think I did practically everything as far as setting up goes until I realized I couldn't log into Twitch. And it was so strange, and it gave me the indication account was suspended. And I'm thinking, what in the world? And so there was a big freak out moment. And because I try to limit my time on social media, you
weren't really aware of the DMCA explosion that was happening.
Yeah, I wasn't aware socially the perception of it, even though I was getting the emails. And the reason I never acted on the DMCA emails is because I thought they were the equivalent of the YouTube copyright notices. So it was just a notice. And then I just I didn't read the fine print at all. I assumed that it was going to take the proper channel, and whatever the claim was, it was just going to get sifted through its proper owner, and whatever whatever money came in, it went to the proper person, as it does on YouTube. I didn't realize that until a lot after the case, obviously. And so creatively, I really do miss Twitch. Twitch seems like such a creative, I don't really know. It has so much of a homier feel to me than YouTube, because I feel like, the streaming side has been fully realized and fleshed out.
Right.
But long answer short, I guess, I miss Twitch though. I miss it. Even though I'm streaming on YouTube, it's with some reluctancy. I miss my old home. I don't know what to do without it.
Hey, have you found any kind of change in the community? Are there certain people that you don't really see anymore that you kind of miss, or is there kind of a different vibe with streaming on YouTube as opposed to Twitch? Or
big time, not just the platform difference, but the names have there have been a few users and things like that have been really, really consistent, and I still see them almost every single stream. But it basically got turned up on its head, and I think YouTube is a bit spottier with notifying people that when you go live. And so the people that do follow me, they often will come in and say, why am I not getting notified? And but the vibe has changed. It really has flipped upon its head, in that there have been a lot of people who had viewed the years and years ago videos that I used to make are coming in, and they're asking me questions that indicate to me that this is their first time interacting with me. how did you make this video? What was your favorite video back then? What's your
Right.
favorite video game? And
Which
so,
I imagine like you got more of that when you first kind of started streaming, but probably less so over the years, right?
oh yeah, for sure. It's usually when, you know, people like show up for the first time that
Yeah.
they kind of do the I don't want to say surface, that kind of that's kind of like an insulting term, but you know, I, I don't know, maybe they're excited to interact, so they just kind
Yeah.
of ask the first thing that pops
Right.
into their
Here's
head.
the common grounds that I can comment on or whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't mean to brag, but I am saying that I was technically in your first stream watching you play Team Fortress 2 so long ago. And
Wow.
it's pretty crazy to see the developments you've made from like YouTube to streaming or whatnot. Because I'm kind of doing this out of order. I usually say this right after the introduction, but you really caught my interest with the Twitch thing. But I've been watching you since I think ever since I saw your, oh gosh, it was like top 10 gaming tropes and YouTubers video, I think. I think that was like the first thing I saw. And then ever since, I've been following you pretty avidly. And I was going to bring this around, and I'm having trouble remembering what I was talking about. Sorry. But yeah, on YouTube, I think you mentioned earlier like how you're having trouble, like, or people are having trouble getting notified about your streams or whatnot. You know, in even just having it in your feed is different than having streams on a Twitch feed, because you go to Twitch specifically to watch streams, while you kind of have to compete with a lot of other videos from people that they subscribe to, right? And I imagine like that might make it more difficult just to bring your streaming community in or whatnot.
Yeah, it's been kind of a weird process, you know. How do you filter people in from one place to another? And I used to try to as the years have gone on and we've all been infinitely more so connected with all the various social platforms and whatnot, I've been trying to limit the ones that I spend a lot of time on. And this is where I've noticed that this may have worked against me in this instance, because I sort of thought as Twitch is like, it was like my catch-all. You know what I'm saying? Like the community rallied all together as soon as I went live, and I didn't have to think about it off stream. Say if it existed in a Discord, or if it existed someplace else that was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people were interacting with each other, and I really liked that aspect about it. You know,
Right.
I'm only worrying about what's right in front of me. Not to say that, you know what I'm saying. This isn't the worst case scenario. Say I had a Discord, I go to sleep, I wake up, and there's controversy afoot
Right.
that happened overnight that I now have to deal with. Thinking of Twitch as my hub, I didn't have that problem, but here we are. I didn't have that hub, so I couldn't say, "Hey, everybody, this happened.
Right.
I'm over here now."
And even with like social media, you typically lay off of Twitter and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, I typically do Twitter.
As you probably should.
Yeah, I read something about Twitter not too long ago. Well, not just Twitter, but just kind of like social media in general.
Sure.
Because I was wondering why is it so addictive? I noticed that as soon as I would get on, it was a bit of a snowball, as if I almost couldn't set my own personal boundaries or limits to stop getting on it once it had happened.
Just
So
an endless feed of distractions, you know.
endless feed, and not just, you know, not just the scrolling through, but just sort of the daily routine of when I first sit down, I check Twitter, and if I do that one day, the chances are I'm doing it the second day and the third are so high.
Yeah.
So the reason that, you know, I try to limit myself, and this is, I read that addictive, what is it? The platforms that evoke a stronger emotional response are typically the ones that become the most addictive. And once I kind of made that connection, I was like, okay, I don't want to. I want to make sure I'm careful. I want to limit my interaction on these social media platforms, so that basically like the addiction or the urge to check and see what's going on doesn't creep in during crucial moments when otherwise I should be present.
Right. Well, and I think your keyword there was like emotion, because, you know, Twitter is certainly an emotional place. You know, it's just one hot take, or even just any take after another with like no repercussion for the takes. And you see it in a sequence that's like all connected to each other, but they're all like different thoughts from just random people, and with no chance of actual discussion. It's not like you're just telling me your thoughts and then I tell you my thoughts. You just see an endless sequence of it, you know? So I think Twitter specifically is like, I mean, every social media obviously has its quirks, but Twitter can be one of the ones that's really tough to have an open dialogue, and that's what raises emotions, you know, and makes it more addicting.
So true. It's so true. And I think once I made a similar connection to that like, oh, this is what Twitter is, as I had been using it. And then that's when, yeah, it was the moment when I realized it didn't really line up with the things I valued most, which is civil discussion, with people who obviously they have a respect for one another. And then on Twitter, even if, say, the two random parties who have never had a conversation before until this very moment are being civil, it can be interpreted differently.
Right. Because everybody else gets to peek in on other people's conversations, and then they become the judge. They become the final say in what happened.
Yeah, it could even be interpreted differently from, you know, the opposite, the party sitting across from them that they're talking to, because you don't know who that person is.
And you only have so many characters to clarify.
You only have so many characters to clarify, and everyone has their imprint, kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, as far as how they communicate, and how closely does that line up to actually how they communicate face to face, like we're doing right now. For example, if I were to ever have a conversation, say, with my dad for the very first time on social media, I would think he was a cold person, because I get such short responses from my dad. But that's not who my dad is. He's very warm. He's very supportive and loving. He's goofy as all get out. But, you know, when we communicate over text, it's very just informative and very short. Like, I get K'd by my dad all the time.
Right.
And I don't think anything of it, because I know my dad.
Yeah, you know him. You've spoken to him before. You know what his tonality is and whatnot.
Yeah, we have a very, you know, we have a great relationship, him and I. Whereas someone else, if I get K'd by them, I'm like,
I'm gonna K you back.
Exactly. I take it at face value, like, oh my God, I just got K'd.
Yeah.
And here we go. And then there's a string of thoughts attached to that, and, you know, we're already probably too deep in at that point if that sort of thing happens.
And Twitter it's like almost entirely text based. I mean, obviously there's images and videos, but it's made for text communication. So naturally, anything like tonality, facial expressions, it all gets lost. And it's a breeding ground for misconception and anger, really, because people getting frustrated over the misconception. You know, as other platforms like Instagram, it works a little bit differently. That's not to say Instagram is also a peachy keen website, but like, because it's mostly picture based, it's not really about people pushing their own opinions or whatnot. I mean, you could argue they make a visual hierarchy and start ranking people based on their looks and stuff like that, and fair enough. But it's just interesting how Twitter specifically caters towards such a opinion bubble that's just explodes every 5 seconds, you know. And basically, I applaud you. Good on you for not being on Twitter very much. Anytime I talk to any of my guests, they say that they're not on Twitter, I'm like, you know what? I very much appreciate that. It's kind of tough because, you know, it's such a big place to network, especially as like for like a small creator like myself. It's, you know, YouTube already doesn't do a fantastic job at bringing people into smaller creators. So most of my very little retention comes from things like other people retweeting and stuff like that. So I feel I'm almost locked into it, but I've done a couple of things, and you fellas watching at home can try this as well. Try deleting the apps from your phone at the very least. That way you have to actually type in the URL if you ever want to use it, and you will want to use it so much less. I guarantee that. But yeah, anyway.
That's a really, really great point. Anytime I use Twitter now, it's exclusively on desktop.
Yeah.
And
nobody likes to use Twitter on desktop, so it's great.
yeah, no, it really does. It does change your relationship with the app
Yeah.
itself, and it slowly breaks away those habits of checking it
Yeah.
compulsively.
And another thing you could try with other social media as well, if you don't want to delete it, you could just try turning off notifications. The apps are made to keep bringing you back in just because someone liked something you posted. It's not really a reason to come back to social media because someone liked what you put out. And that's one of the things I recommend also. But,
yeah, great advice across the board.
Social media could also have its own dedicated episode. In fact, I plan on covering it at some point. So I'm going to kind of move on to another topic though.
Sure.
So like, yeah, as you already kind of mentioned, many years ago, you were working on like a lot of video game satirical content and whatnot. And then you kind of had this like big transition kind of more towards the music side of things, but then also, of course, streaming. And even now you're making beats and you have your own beat store and whatnot. Can you explain to me just kind of how creatively freeing that's felt to kind of break away from the satirical content? Like, are there times where you almost kind of miss your old style, or is it just like you feel like you can be more yourself right now? Can you kind of go into that?
Yeah, no, you've already like nailed it, because it's very freeing right now where I'm at. When you make parody and when you make satire, it is shrouded in
in like a mask almost, right?
Yeah,
kind of in like a fake person.
Exactly. It creates sort of a mist, and if you don't really know, like strong example, and I don't know if you watch Eric Andre, but
yeah, sure.
Who really knows what Eric Andre is actually like, unless you go down the rabbit hole and see genuine interviews of how he behaves. But if you take his content at face value, you know what I'm saying? You have no clue. You have no clue who he is as an individual. And in some aspects during that journey, I realized that that's not what I wanted. I'm sure Eric Andre, people who are deep into that sort of thing and who love it, they enjoy that aspect of it. But I kind of realized along the way that I became popular doing something that, how do I put it, that sort of disincentivized genuine connection, like authentic, to like show who I am and to feel like I'm connecting with people, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that's when it became very conflicting. And the plan from the get-go was always to sort of do comedy in regards to slowly filter in and almost bring people into the music slowly, but that's totally not what happened. It became the videos that blew up for the most part earlier on were the non-music related videos. It creates this pressure. Now I have to make more of this kind of thing now.
Right. And Eric Andre is a great example because he's someone who fully commits to that style, while you're a very articulate person, both in speechcraft and in just your lyrics and whatnot. So
thank you.
To put yourself in the middle of like, here's something you should take seriously and here's something you shouldn't take seriously, it's such a tough line to walk because you'd never know if the audience is actually going to take what you want them to take seriously. Right.
It's painful. Yeah. Absolutely right. It's very, very painful. Because that's kind of like, it's like when I'm gone from this world, or, when my creative journey comes for some reason to a halt, I don't want to be remembered for that particular stuff where, I value it, but it's not what I want to be ultimately remembered for. I want to be remembered for things, I don't know, what I deem much more important than comedy, which is the encouragement aspect, which is like you said, the speechcraft aspect, which I like how you brought in that terminology.
Well, it's one of the things I'm always very impressed with. I try not to fanboy so much on the podcast, but I am a big fan of your music, and I kid you not, in, you know, the Spotify like wrap up that everyone was talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
the number one played song was Late Night Thoughts, because that's just been in my playlist like the entire time. And it's never something I skip because it's something that's so articulate and captures such a creative tone that I think a lot of creators feel. And, you know, I'm a big fan of that. And that kind of ties into another question I wanted to ask you. Like, do you feel that you are more articulate with writing lyrics than you are with regular dialogue? Do you find almost the restrictions of having to make things follow a rhythm and make things rhyme? Does that almost make you or do you feel like that makes your message not easier, but more effective to send, basically?
Such a great question. So the question is it, do I find it more effective or easier to do it on one than the other?
Or at least like, where do you think you're more articulate in, basically?
Man, I might, if I were to assess myself, I might say that I am more articulate in music because when I'm creating music, it's or when I'm writing the lyrics, more so specifically this aspect, it is a highly meditative process. Highly meditative process under the guise that I know that the thing that I'm about to say will be forever immortalized. Forever immortalized. Conversations, the effect that you have on people are immortalized in a different way, you know, like if you encourage someone, if you take them down or whatever. But music, it just behaves completely differently. So I find it far more important because I am both driven by words and I'm highly driven by emotion, which is probably why I was designed to make rap music, I think, because it's very wordy and it's music. So I think that when it comes to making that kind of stuff in that mentality, I am far more articulate, knowing that when someone comes to this, I want it to stand. I almost want this conversation that I'm having with the listener, what I'm saying, if I'm trying to encourage them, if I'm trying to get them to think, I really do want it to stand the test of time and hopefully ring very, very, very true in ways that not all music does.
Right.
So I think music for sure. And it hit it. I know that it's that now that I think about it because it hits me in waves.
Right.
So as I'm working on the song, if it's a very meaningful song and I'm pouring my heart into it, there's a bit of a sort of like a recycling process. I'm working on it. I'm being very objective with certain lyrics. And there comes a time where it's like the lyrics and the performance, the recording, it kind of hits this spot where I'm like listening to it back objectively and it hits me emotionally. And in these moments, I'll often start like tearing up or like crying my eyes out because I've just communicated back to myself. It's almost like feedback into a microphone and a speaker. It's like I've just communicated to myself the very thing that I needed to hear myself.
Right. Because it's not enough to just conceptually come up with it. Hearing the words, hearing the articulation for yourself gives it a whole new meaning, even to the person who wrote it, which is crazy, right?
Yeah. It's so true. That's when I know that the job has been done.
Right. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Like, so then do you usually write with like a specific purpose in mind, or do you find that like just putting your emotions into it, it kind of puts the puzzle pieces in for that kind of message that you're sending? Like,
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was like, do you ever have like a specific purpose for a specific song, or do you think you just find it along the way, basically?
When I sit down, if I'm trying to discover it along the way, well, the very thing that I do first is I try to lock in the chorus of a song, because the chorus to me is the like antithesis. It is the thesis, the heart at what the rest of the song should support. So the verses, the bridge, all these other moments are the way that I see it are ultimately built to support the chorus. So this has been working for me for over 10 years writing this way. I find that if I work in another way, if I work from the verse beyond, which occasionally I may write a song in that way, but I often find myself in the middle of working on the verse. Wait, like, what is this song about again? Like, do I know what this song is about?
Right.
Whereas if I work backwards, if I work from the chorus, I know exactly what the rest of the song should be.
Right.
So I typically go with that in mind. And plus there's another reasoning to support why I do this. If not only if the concept can't be strong, but the chorus in and of itself, rhythmically, melodically, its catchiness, if it is not where I like it to be, then it's not even worth doing at all. If the chorus doesn't hit a certain whatever set of standards for me, then I might abandon this version of it and may try to find a new piece to project the same concept in that can now hopefully make it a better chorus.
And you can tell because it hits you still. Like if it rings home to you or rings true to you, that's when you know, like, okay, this is something I got to keep working with.
Absolutely. It's all about going with your gut.
Right.
If it hits, it hits.
Do you find it easier or more difficult to write your own or write about your own message as opposed to like what you've done in the past with writing video game satirical raps and whatnot? Like, do you find it like more easier to articulate yourself in that form, or easier to work with the pre-made materials of video games and stuff, or is there any difference at all?
I often have said that when working with like video games, I'm very thankful that I did have that season of specifically working on video game related music, because it was something that I hadn't done. The concept of trying to personalize or to take an existing story that is something that you did not live through,
right,
and make it an effective song, is quite a challenge that I hadn't put myself through. I think, which is why you see a lot of surface level video game songs. It's just like reference. You know what I'm saying? Look at Mario in his red hat, jump and get a coin. But
then meanwhile, like a good example of something that's not like that is your Star Fox rap, right? Where you literally put yourself in Fox's shoes to make a song about his dad or whatnot. You found that, like, do you find that more difficult than articulating your own message, or do you think it just kind of goes hand in hand?
I think it does. I think it does go hand in hand. You always have to write. I think any writer from any plane of media will tell you this. You have to write from a true place, regardless of where you write it from. So, for example, take that Star Fox rap, because it is a perfect representation of. So Star Fox, the story is that a pilot lost his dad, right? And he's going on an adventure, or he's trying to either avenge the death of his father by taking out his father's killer, whatever it is. But that's the story that we see, but we don't really think about, like, oh my gosh, someone who grew up with, I didn't grow up without my dad, so now I have to put myself in that situation. But the thing is, because I haven't grown up with my dad, the only person at the time whom I had lost was my grandfather. So when I was working on the Star Fox song, you're kind of going, there's a bit of this, there's this thing that's happening where, I'm referencing Star Fox, but mindfully I'm thinking of my grandfather.
Right. Right.
And
And that can be found in a lot of your songs too.
oh yeah, big time. And I think that roots it. That roots
Yeah.
it in a very true and genuine place.
Yeah.
There's a lyric in the Star Fox rap where it talks about something about having a dream, and everybody around is acting like the dad's there but he's not, or whatever. I can't remember
Right.
the
Right.
lyric exactly, but that was a dream that I had about my grandfather, and I was able to
Interesting.
yeah, that I was able to creatively sort of just like interweave that experience that I had, which
Right.
at the time, when someone passes in your life, it's very common to dream about them, that they're there again.
Yeah.
And so it was shortly after he had passed that I had that dream, and I woke up shook because I hadn't had any really one very, very close to me like him pass yet, nor have
Right.
I had a dream about it.
Yeah.
So when it came to the Star Fox thing, because I had thought about that, it was very seamless to interweave it.
Right.
And that's where the emotion really comes from. Like if you watch the video, I guess, of me like performing it, obviously I don't give a crap about Star Fox's dad passing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who does, really?
Fictional character, not even in the game, really. So.
Yeah, like, he shows up at one point.
Yeah, he comes back, so it's like, why does it even matter?
Yeah, he shows up and he's got, he's like Star Fox's icon with glasses.
All we know is that he's got glasses. That's the only thing we know.
All we know. That's it. That's it. And so, obviously I'm not that emotional about some
Right.
anthropomorphic fox's dad.
Yeah.
But what I am projecting is the loss of my grandfather through that performance.
Well, and it's clearly like effective too. I mean, I looked through some of those comments, and like so many of the comments were just saying like, Luke, are you all right? Like, they're saying like, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Some people really took that as like, this is his experience or whatnot. And that's because you were channeling something personal into it. And so in a way, it's kind of like you've always kind of been articulating your message, even if it's just through essentially a different medium of parodying songs as opposed to making your own, right?
Yeah, and that in and of itself has been that was a fun challenge for that time.
Yeah,
and I think it was crucial. It was an interesting step, unexpected. I never, if you would have asked me this 6-7 years ago, this is not what I would have ever have thought to have done.
Right.
But it brought me to, in a way, like, I've been doing music for such a long time, so this may sound weird to say, but it was almost the last step to helping me realize what I wanted my music to become.
Right.
And what kind of music I valued. And so I'm very thankful for that in that regard, for sure.
Right. Well, and I think that's what really sets you apart from other artists too. Like you said, there's some raps out there. I'm not trying to downplay anybody, but like there are some raps out there that stay a little bit more on the surface level. The reason I feel so attached to your work though is because you really get into that emotional side and bring up the personal experiences and stuff. So I think you did an awesome job, and you've done an awesome job with some of the like late night thoughts, and then even oh gosh. Bump that. That's what I'm thinking of. Is also another really good one.
Thank you so much.
To my understanding, these are both part of an album that you're working on. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Bump That was the first original song, and Bump That. This is so funny. This is very like that was a very significant song because that one was written on the crux of Garrett and I. We had come back together, and we were gonna originally work on another Smash Brothers rap for the upcoming Smash Ultimate. And it was strictly, and he'll say this too, it was strictly on the basis like, okay, Settle It and Smash is both of our most popular songs. It would be dumb not to cash in and make this song. But the more so that we started, I think we had like a pre-chorus and a chorus done, which is like, we probably had about 40 to 45% of the actual heavy lifting done in making this song. And as I sat down to write about it, I was like, man, I do not give a single F about Smash Ultimate or talking about freaking, Bowser and King K.
Yeah.
Rool, and just like I
Did it
just don't
almost
care.
did it almost feel like a step backwards, like towards going closer to the surface as opposed to just
Yeah.
going deeper?
Oh yeah. No, it totally did. Yeah, with Settle It and Smash, we set out with a very ambitious goal, and when there's like a goal in mind, like we want to really shake things up, I'm driven by that.
Right.
We wanted Settle It and Smash to literally become the anthem for Smash 4 on its release, and our goal was in hopes that Nintendo were to contact us for a commercial, an actual commercial that would air on TV and everything, to use the song. Now, that's why the song is kind of, it broadly captures all the things about Smash 4.
Right.
It was with that intent. With this new one that we set out to make, it was strictly just to cash in on the next Smash Brothers. We made a really popular, arguably I think the best Smash Brothers related song about
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
about the franchise. It's time to cash in and make another one.
Right.
And so on that basis alone, I was like, I really don't feel like doing this. I was like, screw this. I was like, bump this. And that's when I wrote Bump That. It came to Bump That was just something I just I felt like writing more than the other one. So over here, Garrett's like, hey man, how's the verse coming along? I'm like, the verse is coming along great. And I'm like, to this other song. And I'm literally making so much headway. So in the week that I was supposed to be working on this new Smash related one, I had written and recorded and mixed this other one, and I was like, I want to go back to my roots. I want to do an old school hip hop album.
Yeah.
So that was I do not know what your question was initially.
No, it's fine. This is just the way the podcast goes, I think it's interesting though, because Bump That was not only a response to Smash, but it was also kind of the transition into your new form of creating too, right? That's how the timing lines up.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. That's when I realized music is in my blood. So I realized at that point I'm kind of done with this video game rap referencing stuff.
Right.
I never even considered myself part of the nerdcore genre. Like, not ever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't know how I thought of myself. But
well, and I think most people who saw your videos, whether it's the satirical ones or the parodies, I mean, I guess they're both satirical in that sense. I think everyone could kind of gather that like he's here for the sake of what he's producing, not necessarily trying to indulge in fandoms or whatnot, right? And I think that's even noticeable in like something like your top 10 characters for Smash 4, right? Completely satirical, but obviously not for the sake of like putting yourself further into this deep fandom of Smash. It's definitely not the purpose of it, right? And I think everyone could kind of gather that from watching. But to kind of bring it back to like the album, with Bump That, how soon after did you think like I need to make a whole album with songs that's a little bit more like this, that pertains to specific moments in my life? Like, what's the timeline on that?
Timeline was really quick. I mean, I think it was, I want to say within 4 to 5 weeks, if not shorter than that. I was on this really big, it was almost like it was a reawakening for myself.
Right.
Because I love hip hop music, specifically the lyricists behind that, what I think make hip hop incredible. So like the music between, the late 80s to the late 90s, that entire decade of specifically lyrical rap, and that it never went away, but there's something about that vibe that just speaks volumes to me. And
are there specific artists that you could give an example of?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would probably say my favorite artist is Rakim. Rakim, who is probably the earliest, I think the earliest, most recognized lyrical acrobat.
Sure.
I mean, this is where Eminem got a lot of his influence, his knack for internal rhyming and stuff. And you have those really driving East Coast hip hop drums with driving bass lines, and that are just that have just so much movement in nature, and
Right.
they're underlying soul and funk influenced all together. I just love that. So
Right.
that's where I was like, I want to create an album like this.
Yeah.
I haven't worked on stuff like this in a long time. However, of course, that evolved, and I realized, okay, this is gonna take a lot more money because of the sampling, like clearing samples
Sure.
and that sort of thing. For example, for Bump That, I contacted the person who made the beat. I can't even tell you the name of the person who had made it, and I said, I was like, hey, do you have any what are the samples in this song? And there's something like 5 different samples from different songs.
Right.
And I got in contact of like a sample clearance. So like in order to properly sell your music now, to have it streamed, you gotta go through all the due diligence in clearing this stuff. I mean, you can say F it, like the
Right.
majority of
You could say bump that.
you really can. And that's kind of the basis of hip hop. You kind of can roll the dice when you sample
Right.
anything. But Spotify has like a strict striking process where if you get caught for not clearing samples, it could remove your entire account or something along those lines.
Right.
And I didn't want to take those chances, obviously. So I got in contact with someone, and they explained the process to me. And basically it was going to cost anywhere from, depending on the sample, right, like 1,000 to like, it could even be like 5 digits or
Wow.
4 to 5 digits of clearing for each sample. And then that's
Right.
when I was like, oh God,
Yeah.
I'm not about to mess with this.
So, and do you feel like after that you kind of felt like you had to put a little bit more effort into the album because of that? Like, did the pressure kind of raise to produce something really, really great? Or
I think that hurdle, it brought me to a point where I was making something that was more reflective of, I guess, who I am. The music that I've been working on lately, I feel is so one-to-one with who I am in every single way.
Right.
And I think without that hurdle, I wouldn't have gotten there.
Right. So would you say you're kind of working on like a magnum opus almost? Like something like this is going to be me, but in album form, you know?
Yeah, I think I would say so. Definitely, I don't know if I would call it a magnum opus in the regards of, I don't want to put that level of pressure on me. Like, this is going to be
Sure.
the best work I ever do. But as far as reflecting me, I really don't think there's ever going to be a song from now on that doesn't genuinely reflect who I am. And it's not a thing, obviously. You don't just like go to sleep one night and you wake up and you're like, this is the solution. You just got to take step by step by step until you just get there.
Right. Okay, well let's change gears a little bit.
Sure.
So you've not just been working on that album, but you've also been, like I mentioned earlier, making beats and whatnot. How has that kind of been transitioning to making more of the formal music or formal aspects of music and whatnot? Like, do you find that feels like a little bit different than writing specifically, or like how's that transition been?
Yeah. The transition has been great, and it is different. It is different when it comes to writing, because I don't have to tap into that sensation of, or not sensation, but the vehicle of articulating anything.
Right.
It's all based on feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that aspect. I get lost in that.
Is it almost like more relaxing too? Because you can almost, I don't want to say autopilot because that almost sounds like it undermines what you do, but is it something having that fluidity almost relaxing?
I think, I think, I think if you can go on autopilot, it's better, and
Okay.
it is relaxing. I think because like the second I find that I'm overthinking the process is when, uh, and it's a certain kind of overthinking. Then the whole thing like stops, and then that's when I get in my own head. If the overthinking leads to me feeling discouraged, I've overthought way too much.
Right.
Which is why autopiloting is really great when
Right.
just
For
creating
sure.
music, because you're not thinking about it. You're just like, does this feel
Yeah.
great? It feels great. Who
Yeah.
cares? Who
And
cares how we
is
got
it
here?
kind of easier to do autopilot when you're doing it on stream because you have to finish it like within that specific time duration?
It wasn't at first.
Okay.
Streaming making beats. It totally was not at first. It was it ever like when I was 18 and when I was really taking the whole like hip hop artistry thing very very seriously. There was a craving to make instrumentals, to like make hip hop beats, but I just didn't have the the things around me to do so. I mean, I was like, I would make some beats with the things around me, and they uh, they were obviously not that good in nature, and so I was just kind of like waiting until I hit college and I got a MacBook, and that's when we had to have Logic, which is the thing that I make all of my music in now.
Right.
And then I just went ham. So it's great.
Yeah.
But streaming at first, the process it is very. I think it fast tracked the process of me realizing that I have to not think about it. I have to go into
Right.
autopilot.
Right. Yeah. Because you probably realize you can't care about every single aspect in that short time span of a stream, right? Like I imagine that
Yeah.
would kind of get you on the wheel, and it seems to be working now because you're doing it quite often now, like most of your streams, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, I have realized these are the most enjoyable streams that I have ever done.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm very very thankful that it's all come to this, I guess.
Right. And is it kind of like um gratifying to have like different requirements every time you like it? Does it kind of have a way of staying fresh because it's other people commissioning you to do it and whatnot, and you get to fool around with a bunch of different styles? Like how does that differ than just kind of making beats for yourself where you have to follow like a little bit of a more strict layout, I guess? Maybe you don't, I don't know. But what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There are beats that I make that I typically that I wouldn't ever necessarily have written a song
Right.
to. And so it is it's very fun, it's freeing in that process, because I can now make music that I enjoy, but not necessarily tracks that I would make a full fleshed out song
Right.
featuring myself with, you know, with performance and lyrics and that sort of thing. So it is just so awesome. It scratches that itch. If anything, I've always like hip hop is like four different. There's like four columns to hip hop. It's like the production side, um, the rapping, the MC, the
Right.
art, the graffiti stuff, and then the break dancing. And the production side also falls in line, typically with DJing, turntablists.
Sure.
And I've kind of like seen the way that I see the columns of hip hop is like the elements in like Avatar, The Last Airbender. And I'm like, all right, so I got the rapping one down pretty tight. All right, so now it's time to go into production. And then I want to go, I really do. I love all four elements of hip hop, so to speak.
Right.
And so I really want to be versed in all four of them.
Sure.
Not to be remembered as like the hip hop avatar. Like that's not the legacy I want to live behind.
Right. Right.
But it's a fun goal to have in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need a mock-up intro of that, just like the Avatar intro, but like production,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I can tell, like, even from your late night thoughts video, which obviously is a little bit older at this point, but I think you were hitting all bits of those, or all Avatar elements with that one, more than like your older stuff, right? Yeah. So I can definitely tell that you're making progress in that, which is good. So unfortunately, we're actually getting kind of close to wrapping up time. So
Okay.
I'm going to kind of finish off with the question I like to finish off with, which is just how have you been creatively dealing with everything that's been going on in 2020? Obviously, 2020 is over, but any kind of repercussions afterward as well. How has that creatively been affecting you?
I think, man,
and I don't mean to like pry into personal stuff, by the way. Feel free to stay just within the creative realm or wherever you want to go, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm being completely honest, but to still add value to the question, like through the answer or whatever, my life hasn't changed really a whole lot, outside from the fact that sometimes I have to stay locked in my place. I mean, like, really, like, my life hasn't changed, but in my life has changed a lot, in that the people around me, their lives have drastically changed.
Right.
Their lives have been flipped upside down. So the biggest thing has been just sort of the immediate support group, my family, my friends, who are now like, well, what do we do? We quit our jobs, or we got let go, and they're sort of in this limbo state of uncertainty. And so the biggest thing that I think that I have gotten out of 2020 is literally to project my agenda onto them. Agenda. Right. Basically, I've been using this whole time to say, like, hey, if you were miserable doing that, like, no job is hiring now. You might as well try to figure out how to get the thing you love to do to become a profitable thing.
Right.
I think there's far more value in doing something that you love, making less money, than being miserable but having enough money to eat. Like, we all got to eat and support and all that and all those things. I'm not saying that isn't important, but when day in and day out you come in and you may be making $100,000 a year, but if you're spending $1 million in emotional equity, I don't think that's worth it. I don't think that job is worth it at all. You need to quit.
Yeah.
You need to quit. You need to take something that takes, like, the other way around.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, continue.
No. Go ahead. Go. I was done with my thought. Sorry.
Well, I think, like, I think it's good that you're encouraging them to try new things, especially like from an artistic side too, because we now have the time to fully go into whatever artistic field that we want to, like, fully capitalize on. I know this whole thing that I'm doing right now just kind of started off because I thought, why not? I've got the time now, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping I can keep it up, when times start going back to normal, or whatever the new normal is going to be. But I do think that, like, one of the benefits of this whole thing is just there's been a lot of creators out there who finally had the opportunity to really pursue what they want to do. And, even if it doesn't end up working out in the long run for those people, like, it's still a moment in time that they got to experience that they wouldn't have otherwise, right? So yeah, I think definitely trying to advocate other people try new things and whatnot. But even as you were mentioning earlier, even if other people, even if yourself is not entirely impacted by all the lockdowns and stuff like that, like you said, like, the people around you are, and even that can be kind of draining, right? Like, totally. Has that kind of, like, messed with you at all?
Oh yeah. If you have people in your life, and you set up things to do with them, and they're constantly miserable, and if you have any semblance of empathy or sympathy, it totally affects that time. You can't be present because you're trying to, like, help them work through whatever they're trying to work through. You definitely don't want to disregard how they're feeling in the moment. You kind of want to meet them where they're at. So, I kind of, before the pandemic hit really, really hard, I really was like the black sheep in some aspects, in that I felt I was one of the only people within my rim social rim, I guess, locally, that was doing the thing that I love to do. And so I kind of realized that when I say, "Hey, just do what you love," it kind of fell on deaf ears, because they're like, "No, I got to make a living. I got to make
Yeah.
money." But now with the
Right.
pandemic, it's like you have really no other choice. It's kind of like it's
Yeah.
been swept up. The rug has been swept up from underneath you. So now I'm able to be like, at this point, you might as well.
Right.
You Nothing is certain, and nothing has ever been certain, but the
Yeah.
pandemic has totally projected that into
Right.
that realization into the stratosphere, that we
Right.
don't ever need to get comfortable. We don't
Yeah.
ever need to get comfortable in that regard. So yeah, it's like when people show up and you're hanging out with friends and family and they're miserable, of course that affects it. Like that
Yeah.
takes a ton of emotional equity
Right.
within that interaction that you may have been looking forward to, you know what I'm saying, it being relaxing and fun.
Right. And but it also kind of provides you an opportunity to give back support to people who have supported you over the years, right? Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
it kind of an opportunity to try to help out other people as well.
Oh yeah. 100%. I really do. I want everybody to be happy and to live fulfilled lives, and to find out uh their purpose and whatnot, but especially those who I love. I
For sure.
really want that for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all good advice for people watching too, just trying to be there for other people who are going through a hard time, especially if you have specific insight that might be able to help them or whatnot, because you're a creator, like you're able to kind of convey that idea of doing what you want for a living a little bit easier than people who don't do what they want for a living. They might have the opposite kind of support that they bring. So
So true.
yeah,
Some
just
some people have
you,
no choice too, and I understand
yeah,
that.
right,
They
right.
have families, and they have, they have certain bills. They got to pay for like medicine and all this sort of thing. I get it.
Right, right. But you're there for them, right? That's the important thing.
Oh, totally.
And we should all definitely be here for each other in times like these. Um, I am gonna have one little caveat question that I attach to this. It just kind of transfers. Like, do you have any advice for creators out there for how they can kind of creatively and mentally stay healthy through things like this? Like, what are some of your tricks for keeping a good creative mindset when creating?
So if you're within the realm of the thing that you already find a lot of fulfillment in, that you love, um, to everybody's wired differently. So obviously the regular healthy things you should be doing, which you should be doing. People who are listening or watching this, what those are. You don't even need any of us to say that again. Um, but I think I thrive. I find enjoyment in stressful times when I have a project to throw myself into. If there isn't a project of any capacity, whatever it is, um, like my best friend Drew had a birthday, and I was like, we were talking a lot about like Harry Potter stuff at that time, and I was like, oh, how dope would it be to like learn how to like carve out and like sort of make like a custom wand in a display. So for about like 2 weeks, I wasn't even working on music. I was just like, I threw myself into this brand new project that I didn't even know how to do,
Right.
to give him something unique for his birthday. If it, I find so much relaxation and fulfillment in projects of any size, shape, or form. And so if you're creative, if you're stressful, especially say like if a project that you are working on, if that in particular thing is stressful,
Right.
maybe take a break from it, find something new, something fresh.
To
Some
delegate art forms.
Exactly. Maybe something that you're more passionate about
Hmm.
in this frame of time, and just throw yourself in it. It's funny how I don't know, just very cathartic it is.
Yeah,
The
for
whole
sure.
the whole thing. So break up that monotony.
You went to college, right? So I assume that you had to take a lot of classes in other art fields as well, like just through the process of continuing with your major. And that's something that I've had to do a lot too, right? Like I've had to sometimes sculpt things, I've had to paint or whatnot. And it's obviously that's not stuff that's aligned with my major, but it's just experimenting with like other realms of creativity always gets me re-energized to come back to whatever project I was working on before.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so true. It's so true.
It still has the effect of trying to be a creative outlet, but it also it allows you to explore other aspects of creativity that then can transfer over when you come back. And of course, just looking at the same project for days on end can always be draining. So I think that's great advice. Just experimenting with other fields, try another project that you want to try and whatnot. And
it all translates. It really does.
It definitely does. And that's why I like doing this podcast, because I can bring on artists of tons of different fields, and they will always have at least a handful of things that just ring true to any other artist who listens, because it's all connected. It's all creativity, sharing this message, making art. And yeah, I guess with that might be a good place to kind of call it for the podcast. Luke, thank you so much for joining. And I appreciate you being here and taking your time out of your schedule. If you would like to kind of explain to the people where they can find you or any projects you're working on, feel free to do it now. Anything you got to plug?
Yeah, youtube.com/Youngtown, YUNGTOWN. You can find me also Youngtown on Twitter, Youngtown Life, spelled LYFE, on Insta. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Dude, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast, and I'm sorry that I blew you off there in December. For those,
what's important is that we got here.
I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball so hard. I stayed up so late, and I was like, dude, I messed up. I was like, my sleep schedule is terrible, and I still feel bad. So I apologize for that.
It's no worries. One little thing to add to that, though, is I don't usually explain who the next guest is going to be, because things might fall through. But I was pretty excited to have you on. So for when I interviewed Lee, I said around the end, because I think he might have even brought up your name, and that's when I was like, which, by the way, I'm getting him on the podcast next time, so that's gonna be really cool.
Oh, that's
and then
so cool.
Next time comes along and it's just something else. But what matters is we got it done. And
we got it done.
Yes, we got it done.
Yeah.
And I very much appreciate you being here. Like I said, you've been one of my favorite creators for a very long time now. So it's an honor to have you here, and I'm glad to see that you are in such a creatively positive place right now too, and I hope that kind of continues on as well.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you so much for all the encouragement, and I wish the same for you, man. Keep killing it on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's really good.
Thank you. And I'm going to extend that to all you creators watching out there. Make sure you guys keep continuing with your your positive creative mindset, because that's ultimately the most important thing to the process of creating, if you ask me. And thank you guys also for supporting me, and make sure you guys subscribe if you'd like to check out more clips and episodes coming out eventually. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next podcast episode. So long.